Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles video. This one is going to be my Season 4 in review video. I do one of these at the end of every season of Turtles to just discuss overall how the season was, where it fell down, what it did well, and I suppose a little bit look forward to what I expect for Season 5. So I think the fairest way to describe Season 4 is that it took way too long to air. Season 4 premiered October 25th, 2015, and only ended, a few weeks ago. And that means that it took a year and a half to air these 26 episodes. That combined with the fact that we started Season 4 with probably like one of the worst sequence of episodes in the show's history. The space arc, I think reflecting on it, I initially thought it was like, okay, it's very variable, it's a bit all over the place. I don't really get what's going on here. It's okay, but it's not brilliant. I think reflecting on that now, it just really was not very good. And I think a lot of people did not like the space arc at all. It took up way too much of the season, and it served only, the purpose of basically reversing things back. And especially with where they actually went then with the important episodes of this season, it's baffling to think that what started off this season. We started off this season reversing time, going back in time to reverse the fact that Splinter was killed, and we end the season with the death of Splinter. Like that's the problem. The problem is that they don't have this. They don't have a balance of when to do big stuff and when not to do big stuff. It's either with this show, it's either nothing or everything. There's no like, oh, let's give them a little bit of like big stuff and that's it. As we'll get into as we go through kind of some of the episodes, it's very much a case of like they used their episodes very, very poorly over the course of this season. So let's get talking about some of the episodes. So the first was the 14 episodes is the first 13 episodes are the space arc. 14 is also the kind of end of the space arc. And I don't think that's very good. Like some of the alien species were okay. The Triceratons were interesting. Raphael and Mona Lisa, that relationship that developed primarily in the space arc was good. I like that they just committed to a relationship, had it happen. And as far as we were aware, it's just a long-distance relationship between Raph and Mona Lisa, even though she isn't referenced a lot in the end of the season. They attempted to build the lore of the Turtles universe with regards to the other alien species and like cosmic threats and stuff like that. But the only real takeaway is just that, okay, April got part of the Soul Star thing, which affected her powers, allowed her to control them, and it was a setup for the April arc kind of that more came towards the end of the season. That was fine, but in general, stuff like Dreg, I think thought he was an awful villain, and then most of the time they were basically just filler episodes in space. I didn't feel they used this space arc all that well, compared to say the 2003 show, which made the space arc really, really interesting. This one just really, really struggled, even though it should have been super interesting. Even the Fugitoid, I felt like they didn't handle it all that well. Part of it is obviously the show's issue with backstory episodes and the way it reveals its backstory, in that it just feels like to them it feels like they have to just throw in a little bit of information to establish characters, whereas they should be perfectly okay with actually doing backstory episodes. Like I think the Fugitoid could have actually used an episode to cover his backstory, instead of doing the 2 or 3 comic book panel things to explain his backstory in like a second. That's the problem with a lot of the space arc, I think, that they could have delved into the history of these various planets and species that they met, but they didn't. They just really quickly explained it and then just had an action set piece happen in the episode, and that just diminished how important battles were in the series. And even by the end of the series, we have no idea if the Turtles have grown as ninjas or not. So the space arc, I felt, was all over the place and really, really let the show down for the first half of the season. We came back after a very long break from April to August with City at War, and I suppose basically the start of this warring factions arc that kind of ended the season. Karai was back in play. April was now a full Kunoichi, and Splinter's kind of back in action. And there were absolutely some good aspects of the show. Most of them came in the last 12 episodes of the show. That is absolutely fair to say. And I think in general, overall, minus a couple of episodes, the last 12 episodes were actually quite enjoyable. I think that's definitely a fair thing to say about the show, but the fact remains that more than half of the season was the space arc, which was bad. And then when they tried to do stuff with bigger plot points in the second half of the season, they actually really struggled to pace them out properly. Like, I think the whole thing with Karai, people were, I think, for me at least, I was super frustrated with Karai. And even by the end of the series, this season, I'm still frustrated with just the fact of, like, why do they keep holding back on just having her, like, be allies with the turtles? They have little moments where the turtles come in and she reluctantly accepts their help. But I hope that the end of this season, what it was trying to accomplish was ultimately to have Karai fully embrace the turtles and, as effectively, really close characters to her, and she will consider them allies going forward. If we get Karai in season 5 and she is specifically staying away from the turtles and not wanting to do this, not wanting to do that, that's going to be so frustrating, because that's been her character since she was introduced, basically. She's such an interesting character, but outside of the whole, her involvement in the Splinter Shredder rivalry, she's always just been this character who should be on the Turtles team but refuses to properly join up. And you delved a little bit more to the Foot Clan and stuff like that. The Shredder recuperating, and we gradually set up the whole Super Shredder situation. You get episodes like the Insecta Trifecta, which wasn't very good. Mutant Gangland, I don't think that was a particularly good episode. And then it's a case of, like, they came back from after the space arc. 2 good episodes, 2 not so great episodes, and then pretty much the rest of the episodes for the end of the season were actually really good. Bat in the Belfry was pretty good, as you kind of delved into more of kind of April's powers, even though it was a bit of a weird episode with how they did it in the comic book coming to life and stuff like that. The Super Shredder was an interesting episode, but again, how many times did they tease the death of Splinter this season? We started off with him basically dead, and they reversed time to try and bring him back. Then the Super Shredder attacks, and he apparently dies, but we come back and he's fine. Like, I think this is the most baffling aspect of the season, in a way. Why did they have Splinter take a fall, like an incredibly massive fall, hitting off bars on the way down, breaking his leg, and the only injury he has is breaking his leg? Like, this was a more... To me, he should have been more injured from this than he was from the scene that actually killed him at the end, where he was stabbed and then thrown off the roof of a building. To me, he fell further going down here. He would have got much more injured falling from such a height and, like, getting smashed on the way down than he would be how he died. So they definitely did their best, in a way, in the writing to diminish as best they could the impact of, like, Splinter's death, just because of the amount of times it was teased before. And that's not even bringing in the stuff from the first 3 seasons where they also teased it. But Super Shredder was a threatening villain for sure. Darkest Plight was really interesting what they did with Splinter down below with the Rat King, and kind of having more of a psychological episode. And it was around this point where we started to really get into the more darker aspects of the series. They started introducing injuries a little bit more, and kind of more brutal stuff happening. But still, just the fact that he is actually fine in the end. To me, the episode 22, The Power Inside Her, this episode is really good. I think it's one of the best in the series, but it should have been a 2 or 3 episode arc, and I don't get why they didn't see that. The amount of things that happen in this episode is the equivalent of, like, 2 or 3 episodes. And I don't get why they can have episodes like Insecta Trifecta, Mutant Gangland, and then a bunch of the filler arc episodes from the space arc, and then being like, oh, we'll have multiple episodes where we deal with this like shark robot bounty hunter guy, but we'll only have one episode to properly deal with April's powers, having just really alluded to it and kind of set stuff up in previous episodes. I hate how it all comes to a head in this one episode and is resolved also within the one episode. And they don't really address, outside of like a couple of lines of dialogue saying like, oh, we heard April's powers are, she's more in control of them now, but they're weaker than they were before. They just mention that a few times and move on. It would have been so interesting to like have an episode that ends with her having like killed Donnie. Her battling within herself of the fact that the real April is like torn up because she's just killed Donatello, this person who's so close to her. You could have delved into like how she actually feels about Donatello. Maybe not reveal if she's like chosen him or Casey or anything like that, but really hit home with regards to that, and have her fight within herself and the Aeon person that's inside of her, Xanaron, and like just have her basically kind of doing like an X-Men, like a Phoenix, Dark Phoenix kind of force type thing, where she just ends up like hurting everyone around her and has to on her own break out and make amends of everything. They roughly had it all, but it was all rushed within one episode when it should have been such an important thing. Again, I continue to maintain that I think April is one of the most interesting characters in the show, but she's also one of the more underutilized characters within the show in terms of them realizing that they've made her one of the more interesting characters. The Turtles don't have character arcs. She does utilize her more. I don't get why they don't realize that. Taco versus the World, another thing that they'd set up from the space arc, that was fine, even if it really didn't have a ton of impact. I'm interested to see if they do anything with Chompy in terms of him growing up and becoming bigger. The Tale of Tiger Claw was interesting. I actually liked that they kind of delved into Tiger Claw's backstory. It elevated him as a character and made him feel more important, while also having a darker moment at the end. I feel it was meant to be the episode that kind of very much sets him up and makes him feel like a big threat going into Season 5 as potentially the main villain. I still feel they have work to do, even if I'm actually reasonably interested in that. I assume Alapex will come back as a character and we'll get more of a showdown type situation going forward. Then we get to the finale, Requiem and Owari. Again, I liked Requiem. I thought Requiem was probably the best episode of the show overall that we've ever had. How they did the death of Splinter, I thought, was impactful, even if they had moments in other episodes that diminished it. There was a lot of intensity around the fight. Intensity that, for some reason, was severely lacking in the finale for me. I know a lot of people disagree with me on the actual finale episode. They felt it was actually fine. I didn't like how the fight didn't feel all that impactful. I didn't like how they did the final fight. It didn't feel like Leonardo was more impressive. It didn't feel like the Turtles were more powerful. It just felt like, by the numbers, final episode, instead of it feeling like the 2003 show when they have the confrontation with Shredder and Leo wins. That was amazing how they did that episode. This one just felt completely by the numbers. Though, you know, they did stuff like injuring Karai, potentially having some of the Mutanimals, potentially having some of the other villains be killed. But again, it was all throwaway. Nothing felt important in that, like, as far as I think we know in Season 5, most of the characters we thought were dead, like Fish Face being left without his kind of water breather thing, Razar being drowned, basically. As far as we know, they're coming back for Season 5, so they did their best to diminish a lot of stuff that really held the series back from being amazing by the end. But yeah, like they end in an interesting spot in that Splinter is dead for sure. I think we may see Leonardo get like vision advice from Splinter over time, but I do think he is dead. Is Super Shredder dead for sure? I don't know. They could always reveal something about his mutation, that he somehow can survive without his head or can grow one back or something like that. I don't really know. I think if there's a problem with the finale here is that they don't leave a lot open for the next season. Tiger Claw's still out there, and there's a couple of other villains I assume still out there, but what's next? I feel what they should do in Season 5 is commit to having proper character arcs for all of the characters. I think that's what they really, really need to do. Leo, what they did with him at the end here, basically making him now the sensei, giving him the big victory over Shredder, was cool. But I don't think it was character development as such, in that nothing in the fight really made it come across that, like, oh, Leo's changed now, he's different. He just happened to win. He happened to win the final engagement in a physical contest, and that's it. I feel like we have to see him actually potentially train the other turtles. Maybe he has issues, and maybe they can use the fact that some of the others feel that way about him. But again, I feel that's potentially going over old ground with regards to the issues with Leo's leadership, and now the issue with Leo being a sensei. I think they could fall into the same traps that they fell into in all of the other seasons if they do that. So I think they have to commit to stuff like Leo and Karai in a relationship, finally deciding to do something with Casey, Donnie, and April, that kind of whole love triangle thing. I'm honestly saying, like, lean into the relationship stuff if you have to. It doesn't really feel like there's a huge threat of a villain out there just yet. In that Tiger Claw feels important, but doesn't feel like the be-all, end-all villain. And you now have space at least to deal with more personal, character-focused things. And I hope they realise that. But yeah, I think that's more or less everything I want to talk about this season. It comes down to the fact that this show has suffered from the same problems in basically every season. It's taken far too long to air every single season, and the Turtles don't have character development. They don't realise that it's actually the side characters who they give important stuff to. The likes of this Tiger Claw episode, April and her powers, Splinter and Shredder's rivalry. They're the important characters. The Turtles are nothing as characters right now. I think they should also be much more careful with how they use the Turtles in fighting and how they portray fights and get across character strength, because I feel we should now know that the Turtles are more powerful, whereas we don't. And just lots of things like that. I think the animation continues to improve and get better and better, but that's one of the only things in this show that is constantly improving. I hope, given that we now know that Season 5 realistically is probably going to be the last season of the show, it's only 20 episodes, hopefully they now realize that they need to focus on what's important. 20 episodes hopefully means they won't spend too long airing it, and in that I don't think it's too far away. I need to check it up for sure, but let me see, Season 5. I think it's airing like very, very soon. March 19th, so it's actually airing like this weekend, so it's the first episode of Season 5 this weekend, so that's fine. Hopefully they don't jump into a break too quickly. Let's quickly like experience with me what the previews are for the first couple of episodes. Number 1, the Scroll of Demo Dragon. The Turtles believe they have defeated most of their old enemies, but they soon discover that a new evil is rising from the ashes. Okay, something about dragons, that could be okay. The Forgotten Swordsman. Karai searches for the legendary Koro Kabuto, claiming the rightful heiress of the Foot Clan when she suddenly encounters an old rival. Okay, a Karai-focused episode, bringing Shredder's original helmet into play. That's cool. Donnie's grudge with Don Vizioso threatens the Turtles' new mission. No, don't really care about that. End times. The Turtles must defeat the mighty Demo Dragon Cavaxas to prevent him from destroying the world. Okay, a dragon, Demo Dragon, whatever that means. If it needs just a 4-episode arc where we kind of deal with this character, that could be interesting. 5 is called 10 Pandemonium, 6 is called NMRT, and 7 is called The Crypt of Dracula. I'm seeing a bunch of episodes that come across as filler, but hopefully there is something more to it in terms of character interaction stuff. So I have some hopes, but overall I'm not like super excited for Season 5. That's where I'm at with this show. Nothing here screams to me that they're doing anything big. It kind of feels like they're just going out with the show, and that's it. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were. Overall, how was Season 4 for you, and what are your expectations for Season 5? But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.